I am again at the mountains over Mostar. That's Velej, and this is called Podveležje, this area. Get out often and get out as often as you can. That's my motto. It's not hard, I enjoy it. Today I was with the little girl, then she fell asleep, her midday nap. Mom got some time, plenty of time to do her work, and I'm not gonna miss this day, so I went up the mountains. It's very silent here, in contrast to the city. And as Mostar is sort of surrounded with mountains, like everything is, if it's hot, the heat stays. If it's noisy, the noise stays. If it's whatever, it's sort of, you know, he can't crawl out. So, but it's a rich place in nature, so one can always get up here. And I sort of think of this as a Wannabe Zarathustra. You know, the Nietzsche book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra. I had a copy which was the second edition, the Swedish second edition. The book wasn't it wasn't you know, expensive collectible object, but I had it. It had this, you know, late 19th century Swedish in it, which is really pleasant to read and to hear and to speak, because it's not as undigestible as, you know, medieval times or whatever, but and it is not as flat and informal as Swedish is today, but just about right. Very noble, very poetic. A colleague got that book borrowed, but I never saw it again, and I just leave it at that. But perspective, you know, Zarathustra came down from the mountain, and you know how those Nietzsche books go. But in a way, as always, to get perspective is very important. It is very important to actively wash one's eyes and perception, because otherwise you get blind for what's in front of you. And I'm at the line of as a man, that you have to sort of take a few days of your own somewhere, you know. I'm not doing that right now. This is not that, but that's a good thing. It can be anything, you know. If you have a music studio, lock yourself in there for a week or something. No, but anyway, if you have a tent, a cabin, you know, you go there and refresh your head. As I always, I'm very drawn to places that have mountains. Norway, the Balkans. For example, here in Herzegovina, the climate is Mediterranean. In Bosnia, it's alpine, so it's colder. And that line goes somewhere between Mostar and Sarajevo. I look straight down in the valley, and there's a formation of smog, sort of. Not hard smoke, it's just that people use wood. You know, wood is very cozy as a heat source, but it's the reason why many countries have sort of central heat is because it makes the air sticky. It makes the air dirty. But that's not to compare, nowhere near like the smog cases in Sarajevo, Zenica and Tuzla, which are, you know, Beijing style. But here, it's really fresh. Thus spoke Zarathustra. You know, Nietzsche was an interesting character. He he was such a spokesman for the free spirit, the individual, the Übermensch. But he became sick and lived with his sister in his late life. And she later took the sort of interpretation privilege of his work and made it into a more, what suited the Nazis, with their ideology. But it wasn't about an Übermensch sort of group. It is about the inner you, to smash those limitations. And force and power don't always work that well. Sometimes just being soft works better. You have to be soft and hard. And why I'm sort of mixing in Zarathustra is because he, in that book, he uses the masses, the people down there as a bad example. I'm not going to do that in that sense, but people get easily drawn into what other people want them to be like. Expectations drown people, suffocate people. When you hear people who, for example, don't want to go to a wedding or something because it's the 5th wedding this year, but they do it anyway to be nice. And all that sort of lying nonsense people waste their time with. I don't do that. Why? Because that makes you realize how much time you really have. And that also makes you realize that people who say they don't have time, unless they have some crazy situation, I mean, everyone doesn't live according to the same standard. I just have to have that disclaimer. But it's up to them. You got time for what you want to have time with. And reducing your nonsense possessions, your nonsense consumption, focusing on the most essential. No, but that makes you realize that you really have to focus on your own things and let people suffer in their own expectation. There's a plantation of trees there, a sort of small forest patch, an unintentional park. So let's go there and get mixed up with the trees. You see, there's no wind, so all the fumes from the cars and, burning of wood in the stove, it all stays there. But as I said, this is nothing compared to Sarajevo or Tuzla or Zenica. Everything in nature can be described mechanically, physically, chemically, molecularly. I can be described like that, and the sun can also be described like that. Now, here's the leap of faith, basically. Someone can describe me as just an organism. I walk, I eat, I go to the bathroom. The sun also, it produces energy. And the sun is just a mindless producer of energy. Now, I feel like the sun is consciousness itself. My consciousness. You see, there's a connection between us two. Everything I perceive, think and do is a result of that energy source up there. That's why the ancients worshipped the sun. And the sun itself is also dependent on other aspects, but there's always this duality. Everything can be described as a mindless process, but it can also be felt. You see, you don't have to feel the sun every day, like, oh, there's my conscious body up there. But once again, to clear one's perspective, to just get out, refresh, one gets the sensation. Even now when I have clothes, there's a cow over there. I hope it's a friendly cow. So far I've been lucky with cows. So anyway, even though it's not warm, I still feel the presence. I still feel, I mean, look at that. It's just majestic. And that is also something that we can try to attribute to other things in nature. Trees, stones. You know, in Iceland they don't want to build a tunnel because some people claim there are spirits there. It might sound crazy to you, but they have a certain way of perceiving their nature, and that's fine. Well, the most obvious, argument against this is that, oh, so, we eat plants and stuff, that's bad, and everything is bad, everything just eats up itself. But since everything is part of oneself, there is no eating of oneself, really. Life is not permanent, even though transhumanists have their new religion. Every 1,000 years there comes a new religion, depending on the current technology and perception of the world, and they want to make their lives endless, or 800 years or something. But if you don't know how to live for 80 years, you might not know how to live for 800 years. You might just have the same life you have now, but prolonged. But everything ends, and also everything feeds from oneself. But to really experience, I'm not having that experience right now, I had it, that the sun is really inside of you. That your experiences, your perceptions, your everything this planet has is because of that sun. The sun is also a very easy oh, there's a cow there. We just need to say hello to her. Oh, there were plenty more up there. 2 more up there. Let's go before their husband comes. Yeah. So the sun is a very good object of not worship but contemplation, to open yourself up to the sun, to let it feed your skin. You see, many people use those chemical sunscreens, and you know what happens? They just have a heat reaction with the chemicals in their skin, and that makes them sick. I mean, their skin becomes sick, and they might get a skin disease or skin cancer. One should be careful, of course, with strong sun, but there are natural alternatives, and also just to take it easy with the sun. And why am I talking about the sun? And it's because in 20 days, almost 20 days, the new sun cycle is beginning. Jul, Saturnalia. The new cycle, the new period is coming. And I always have to point out this, that no prophet was born on Christmas Day. People worship the sun in Europe because Europe is kind of dark and cold when it's winter time, so they worship the return of the sun. But of course, when the Abrahamic religion conquered Europe, they had to sort of remake those traditions. So the worshipping of the sun's return became the birth of a prophet, the Son of God. Ho ho ho. But so, that's for me an object of worship, an object of contemplation, to have it present in my life. And that's why getting out as often as one can is very important, because I did a video, I linked to it this summer, where I just basically talked about shortly, you know, if you go out in nature and talk to it, and I don't mean talk to it, you don't have to say hi, so what do you do for work or something, of course. You can think it, you can feel it, you can do it as many times. You will get a return. It won't give you the lottery ticket numbers, but it will give you something in return, because we are programmed to only approach other human beings and in a certain way. We have limited ourselves and we don't approach nature openly. And I think this is very healthy to do from time to time. And there is really no religious, spiritual, new age thing about this. What is wrong to accessing nature, to interacting with nature? Everyone loves to see beautiful nature documentaries and all that, but everyone has nature accessible to them in one way or another. You might not have mountains, you have something else, a forest. So one can always interact. It's getting cool right now, so on with the wool again. Really, people can make fun of this. People can, you know, fall back to some sort of materialistic, oh, you're foolish. There's no such thing as a conscious sun. It's just a power plant. But yeah, I mean, Earth was a burning rock millions of years ago, and now it's crawling with life. So this stone has a potential. It can offer something. There's a certain vibe, a frequency to it. It doesn't do something complicated for me to perceive, but it can make something. It can make a sound, it can make a dish. There is nothing to feel strange about accessing nature. You see the Mostar down there. Great view. There's even a better view down there on this edge. I did that last year. It's beautiful to see one place in a different light and just a different setting. The sun went down and now it's time to think about survival. I have these serpentine roads to walk for yet an hour and a half. So I'm thinking about food. Like I really want to make a big dinner tonight. And it's getting chilly. But that's that, you see. The magic came and the magic went. There's another kind of magic now. A more mundane magic, a more, red-colored sort of, to think about food, heat, family. So from one magic to another. I love it. Take care and all the best.